What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Water for the Thirsty, where it's the word simply, the word refreshing. We're here again to top it up using our Bible reading plan. Tonight, our conversation we expect is going to come from, here we go.
Everywhere.
Everybody, oh, my thing is missing. Didn't even realize that. So I'm coming from First and Second Corinthians, Judges, Ruth, First Samuel, and Kenrick Shaper Brook, the Psalms. So we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still not rhyming. Have you ever heard of a song that doesn't rhyme?
Yes.
What?
Um,
Exactly.
so I was going to say, I've heard of poetry that doesn't rhyme. And
Not a
poetry is
song.
essentially songs.
It's actually there's a type of song. I don't remember the name of it, the terminology they use,
I
but
can tell you what it is. It's called Psalms.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a type of song.
Yeah. So there's the poetry. There's the poetry that doesn't rhyme. And then there's songs in another language don't always rhyme, right? They don't always.
Sure. I can sure. And that's where we get this.
All I'm saying is some of these poems in Psalms rhyme in its original language.
Correct. Okay.
When they translate it, they can't actually get the word that means this to mean the same thing, and so you lose some of those effects.
My ignorance is preventing me from
some of
truly
it,
enjoying.
yeah. Maybe if you could speak Hebrew, you'd be able to appreciate
Yeah.
the sing-songy nature of the thing a little bit better.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so language does that. Eric, we missed you last week. How's the word been treating you since the last time we met? Anything that stands out to you, wrestle with, questions about, or you reflected on, and the second it was like, man, I wanna.
No, I've even though I've been away, I still been in the Word. I'm still going through some stuff in my life, like nothing serious. Like no, don't need to like just Kendrick's making decisions, right? And the first time in my life, right, really truly consciously making an effort to be led by God. But really, like, I think that he's definitely led, right? But like making a conscious effort to wait and move when he says move, just like that.
How do you know that he hasn't already told you to move?
Exactly. This is the problem. So this is my whole thing. So like I'm going through this growing pain right now. And I'm searching. I'm trying to figure out what to do, when to do. I think I know what to do. The problem is that I've received the what to do. I haven't received the when to do. And so there's a lot of things that make sense but I don't want to do what makes sense, because where God leads doesn't always make sense. I want him to be very explicit with me in what he wants me to do and where he wants me to go and what when he wants me to do it.
Let me ask you this question. Have you, in your life experience with God, been able to detect a discernible communication style from him that you'll know that's
yes,
how
he loves it. He loves talking to me in the shower, butt naked.
Okay. Yeah.
right? So I mean, I've told you this before,
Mm.
right? So I've had my like I've clearly heard him in certain situations, and most of them are like when I'm by myself, water running over me, shower, right? Um, and so, but this hasn't been it. I've never been emotional about things. Like I don't really get emotional in general about life or whatever. Um, but in making decisions this time, I've received like this calming peace over me, um, which is different, right? Um, but this experience has been a little different. Like I've heard stuff, but I'm questioning because it hasn't been like what it typically has been. Um, and then of course when those things don't happen, I'm just like, ugh, am I talking to myself?
Is
Am
it
I pushing the
indigestions?
things that I want? Um, all these different things. So I'm really in this. I don't even want to say valley. I'm just going through an experience, and I'm trying to
Mm.
figure things out, and trying to figure things out based upon this relationship I have with God. So I say all that to say, so this week specifically, like First Samuel has been like throwing me through loops. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense. Everything's good, and then so um
Tell us more, because I'm now intrigued.
um hold on. I got a bunch of notes, and of course I have notes and my phone's going dead. So um Samuel, when he was a kid, so you have Eli, you have all this stuff. He's in the temple. One of the things that stood out to me was like during this time when God is Samuel, Samuel, whatever it sounds like, right? The Bama's sleeping, laying down. I don't know if to say he's sleeping, but he's laying down. Or away from Eli. He's in his room, on his cot, whatever. Um, there were a couple of things that stood out. So I guess it's First Samuel. I guess it's 3. Is it? So number one, Bama's weren't hearing from God. Like he wasn't speaking to nobody back then. Like it was. I think the verse was saying it was very rare to hear messages from God.
Which verse said that?
Verse 1.
Uh,
Oh,
hold
yeah,
on.
verse 1. Got it.
Yeah. So it's like very rare to hear messages from God. So I'm pulling it up now. Sorry. Um, and so so number one, that just tells you the state of the children of Israel at the time. Um, I'm not sure if that was the same for Eli and his sons, since I mean, we know what his sons were, but if that was the same thing, like God just wasn't speaking in general to anybody, so it was very rare in general, or was it just rare to people outside of the priests? So that was one thing. Anyway, so the fact that Samuel hears this voice is already, and of course, in as it's going in time, you don't really figure it out. This kind of afterwards, but Samuel's hears this voice. He goes and thinks it's Eli. Eli tells him go back to bed. Hears it again. He goes, thinks it's Eli. Go back to bed. Third time, Eli's like, it must be the Lord. Go back to bed, and when you hear it, this is what your response should be. Looking at it through my lens of what I'm going through, right? And trying to figure out. A couple things stood out. I was like, is this Bama waiting for, like, so he goes back to wherever he was going, to sleep, to bed, laying down. Was he waiting to hear the voice again and just being still? Or was he going back to what he was doing, and as in sleeping or laying down or whatever, and when the voice comes back, it comes back? And it's important to me because the waiting or occupying are two totally different things, right?
Yes.
Am I waiting and being still and not moving? Or am I occupying and doing what I'm supposed to do all day, every day, whatever, and then when God says something, move at that point? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that's the first thing that stood out. That's the first thing that stood out to me in this,
Do you want
this
to
week.
pause there and see if the text kind of gives us any answers?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, Courtney, you got reading duties. Let's go from verse 1.
Mhm. Okay. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel served the Lord by assisting Eli. Now, in those days, messages from the Lord were very rare, and visions were quite uncommon. One night, Eli, who was almost blind by now, had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. Suddenly, the Lord called out, Samuel. Yes.
Hold on.
First of all, that's not how he said it, just for the record.
Your version says Samuel was sleeping.
Yes,
Mine says sleeping.
Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. That's what it says.
My version says he was lying down in the house of the Lord, almost like he is.
What are you on? What are you using?
NIV.
And I'm using NLT.
Yeah, I'm in NLT too. So what does KJV say?
Let's see what the first.
Samuel was laid down to sleep, not necessarily sleeping, but he was laying down.
Okay, so that was he was saying his bedroom where his bed area was there, and he was in
Correct.
bed.
Yep.
But we can't tell if he was sleeping or not.
With the intention to sleep.
With the intention
at the very least.
Okay. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, you're right. New King James says Eli was laying down in his place.
It was bedtime.
All right. Did you want to do God's part?
No. In my head, it's like Samuel. Like it sounds like it was more like a.
Oh, I got you.
It wasn't like Sam.
All right. Like Sammy. All right.
Sammy.
All right. I'm gonna laugh. I can't do this. Yes. Samuel replied. What is it? He got up and ran to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, Eli replied. Go back to bed. So he did. Then the Lord called out again. Samuel. Again, Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, my son, Eli said.
So pause there.
Yes, sir.
So he was in bed to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
He hears something call him. He get up and he run to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have an expectation when he went back down that he'll hear it again.
Yeah.
Correct.
He hears it again, and being the good obedient boy that he is, he gets up and goes. And then when when Samuel said it wasn't him, he goes back to bed again.
Correct.
I doubt at this point that he's now laying to hear if Samuel's calling for him, because he knows for a fact that Samuel's not calling for him. So maybe he's wondering, am I hearing things? Because he doesn't have any context for this is God calling me, or that he's not expecting a message. Neither is he in need of anything where he's waiting to hear something.
Correct. Yes, correct. All of that's facts. Yeah, I'm with you.
Go ahead, Courtney.
All right, and also New King James Version says it had in parentheses. I guess in the next verse, he didn't know the Lord, nor was the word of the Lord yet revealed to him. I guess the same thing. 7.
Yeah, so it felt like this was like the first experience that he truly had, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of raw and all that.
So there's no established pattern or rhythm for how God speaks to him. Like he doesn't have a familiarity. Oh, this God because this is God's style, and I've heard this from him before.
Correct.
I think it's key in terms of your initial question. Samuel doesn't have anything here that he wants. He's not seeking any answers. He's in bed trying to sleep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is an important piece to the question you asked about whether he was waiting or occupying.
He was just
He
doing.
wasn't looking for anything.
He was just doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So the Lord called a third time, and once more Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? Then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So he said to Samuel, go and lay down again, and if someone calls again, speak or say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed. And the Lord came and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel replied, speak, your servant is listening. Then the Lord said to Samuel, I'm about to do a shocking thing in Israel.
Pause there, Courtney.
Certainly.
I'm just reflecting on Kendrick's question as we read.
Yeah.
So there is a chance that Samuel is now listening to hear if he hears the voice again.
Mm-hmm.
But what he's listening for is if he hears the voice again. He's still not looking for an answer to a question. He's still
Or a message or anything like that. Correct.
So while he might be laying there looking around going, okay, is this guy going to call again? He may also be, but it's a different kind of attentiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for a message. I'm looking for a voice. I'm looking for a presence
For him?
for Samuel.
Yeah, I think he's, based upon how the story reads, I think it's he's he doesn't know what to. He just he doesn't have any expectations. There's nothing here. It's literally, I heard a voice. I thought it was somebody. No, Samuel, after 3 times, it's not somebody. It's the Lord. Next time you hear the voice, answer him this way.
Right.
That's it. Like nothing else.
Yeah.
Maybe Eli has that experience too. So you could tell him, like, what made him know that was God.
I'm assuming. So I think there are a couple things. One, I'm assuming they're the only people in the temple, but maybe not.
I guess that makes sense. And they're in the temple, right?
And they're in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
So Gerald says, I think that third time he was ready to hear. And then he adds, he might have been asleep, but he was ready for the voice this time. Yeah.
That's actually a good point. So you don't know. There's no indication of how much time went by, where he was or the state of his, whether he was awake or sleeping.
Yeah.
But what he's listening for, and I think this might be key, is a communication,
Mm-hmm.
a call, an invitation to talk. I think that's a major difference here from what you said that you're experiencing, and at least the answers to the questions that you were seeking.
Yeah, but I'm also looking for, I guess my thing is that I am looking for a talk. Like I'm looking for a talk and a conversation so I can know kind of what's expected of me. Whatever that is. And so I've been I've been trying to be very clear as to like what I'm fine with whatever.
Right. I'm just curious of how can Samuel help you with that? I guess that's the angle I'm trying to.
So there's that, right? And I'm gonna put a pin in that.
Well, I'm asking from this standpoint. As you're putting the pin, I'm asking from this standpoint because I want to make sure I'm clear. What does Samuel reveal about God that will help you with that? Or does
I
he?
guess the only thing that I can think of that revealed that was revealed about God then was that he was very intentional in making sure that this message went to him. This was not a message, and I'm not sure, and kind of, some of my notes were like, was this a message that he had been trying to get to Eli and he couldn't, and so he had to get somebody new in order to get it through, because it had nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
It was 100% about Eli, and about the fact that Eli wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, and his kids ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So there had to have been like other things, and we've had this conversation in Water for the Thirsty, where there have been, God's very clear, and he doesn't just automatically just stop or start or do something. Like, there have been warning signs. There were things that were given prior to let you know that, hey, I need you to turn away from this. I need you to do this. I want you to do whatever it is, right? And so this was kind of like the last resort. This was,
But here's the thing that we could learn about God from this, and I think it is in line with what Lauren has put in the chat. If he has something to say, you'll say it again until you hear it. But it's in line with that. It's when God wants to give you some kind of message, he wants you to know that it's coming from him, and he does it in a way that you're going to know it's coming from him. Like, if I look at all the stories in the Bible where God comes and delivers any kind of message, the people may have had doubts about whether the certainty of the message and other things, but God catches their attention in a manner that would grab their attention and let them know that this message is coming from God, and has the authority. Even when he sends out the disciples, he validates the message with some kind of sign to validate them as a messenger, so people know it's coming from God. Whether they believe or not is a whole different story. But God having this Samuel come, Samuel go, by the time God is ready to speak, Samuel knows when he hears this voice that this is God. He needs to listen.
Correct. And I think that's part of what I'm having to deal with, like I'm experiencing right now. So I ran into so I'm going through reading all this stuff, right, and studying, and I ran into a situation probably a couple weeks ago, where I got into a situation with somebody, and although I knew that I was 100% right and had the 100% best intentions, they could not see it. And they were upset and like frustrated and like mad about it. And this is a battle I've had with God for a while, because I think I'm fairly resourceful. Like, I just figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll get from A to B to C to D. I'll figure it out, right? And this was a situation that I couldn't figure out. Like, all my rationale, I sat there, I went through it like step by step by step by step. Like, it couldn't have been plainer. I could have walked a 3-year-old through it, and the person just didn't. It just wouldn't happen. And literally, as I'm leaving, I'm frustrated. I'm upset, because not only is it's costing me money, and the thing is, like, it's costing me money when I'm actually doing something that's taking care of this person. Like, I'm making sure their whole situation is good. And I literally heard, just like, stop, like, it's the same stuff I tell my kids all the time. Like, why are you stressing about a teacher? Why are you stressing about this? God made a teacher. Like, talk to him about the teacher that he made. Let him work out with that teacher. And it literally came back to me. It was like, I made this Bama. He didn't say Bama, but he was like, I made this dude. He didn't say dude either. He said I made him. And was like, so it was like, your problem is that you put a lot of trust and faith in you, right? And all this stuff that's figuring out. And it was like, and this is something that you absolutely can't fix. And there's nothing. It's like, you've actually made it worse. I'm the only one who can go in here and do it. Let me handle it. And literally, I was like, all right, you got it. And 4 or 5 days passed. I happened to be back over there, and the dude was like, yo, hey, I was thinking about what you said. I have a proposal for you. And it was the most rational conversation ever. Right? And I was just like, this is that. His proposal was exactly what I was talking to him about. Like, no different. And it was like, so anyway, I'm saying all that to say, like, as I'm going through this process, one of the things I'm hearing is, we've been there, got the t-shirt. Part of my experience is actually learning how to get out the way and let God be God, which goes back to my wait, occupy. Like, all of this kind of plays in the same realm. Like, this is very new for me because I've always been I'm a doer. I do. It makes sense. Like, do it. Like, figure it out. Like, critical thinking, all this kind of stuff. And this is like the first time in my life where I'm just like, all right, I'm not gonna think critically here. I'm just gonna wait and let you tell me when to move, how to move, what to say, when to say it, da da da. And I don't even know if that's where he wants me to be, but when I'm reading, so when I read this chapter in Samuel, when I looked at, when you look at Saul, right? And the 2 times that, one, he didn't wait for Samuel to come and do the offering, right? And then the other time, he wasn't obedient. It was just, so all these things are like playing mind games with me in my relationship and trying to figure this out.
A couple of thoughts. In the example of Samuel and Saul, God is the pursuer.
Mm-hmm.
And he is
Yes.
trying to deliver a message.
Yes.
When Saul is disobedient and doesn't wait, he had clear instructions for how long to wait. It wasn't an indefinite period.
Correct.
He had a marker to look for. And
which I thought was like, that's the easiest thing, man. The Bible says 7 days. Like, that's...
He said 7 days, but Samuel was late. But he said, I'll be there in 7 days, but wait until I get there.
Correct.
So the marker really wasn't the 7 days. It was more till I get there. Mm-hmm. Right? But at least there was a clear, there was a, in these instances, there's a clear word about what God wants and what his expectations are. And he delivers enough of it for you to take action. I'm wondering now that you have a question about what you should do, how that is different, if it is different, or how these things inform that situation. And do we have another situation in the Bible with people or person who hasn't been promised anything? Because my first person that comes to mind is Abraham, right? Because he waited for 11 years and then he pulled the trigger, but he was given a promise of something that would happen. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, let's go back to your situation. Did God tell you, I need you to do this, or this is what I want you to do? And he just didn't say, go do it now? Or
no. And so that's a really good question. So no, it is, I think it began with my desire to, and then me asking,
can I? Should I?
And the response I got was, I believe I received was, yes, you should. Or yes, it's okay. Not even like a should. Like, yes, that's fine. Right? So then my next answer is, next question is, okay, when? And that's when silence. Like, I haven't received any indication of when.
Got it.
And so now that's what I'm saying. Like, so I'm in the should I be in a straight waiting period where I'm laying down waiting, or should I be in an occupying period where I'm continuing to do things, whether it's moving in that particular direction, and if a door shuts, right, then I know that's not it. Am I just doing all the things I was doing before and waiting, and kind of occupy myself, or I'm just literally just sitting here and not doing anything? Like that's.
That one. I don't even have a Bible story to reference for you, but I do have a piece of advice that someone shared with me that you can add to your kitty of stuff that you're evaluating.
Yeah.
I'm not going to attempt to speak for God in this sense. I'm just saying someone said this to me and it was helpful, because I know I have been in that place where I thought I heard God say this. I misinterpreted what he was saying. I did something other than what he meant. And what was said to me was sometimes, and he didn't say sometimes God, he just said sometimes we learn things by trial and error. And we learn it's not that by going and doing it and learning that it's not that.
Correct. But I feel like I've been doing that my life.
Oh, you're trying to move away from doing it that way.
Well, and maybe that's the way. I don't know. What I'm saying is, like, I think that as opposed to doing it by trial and error, I would really like to make sure I'm initially in his will and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, whatever that is supposed to, for that particular, thing.
But
Like,
you already have permission.
Huh?
But if you have permission.
Yes.
So that's what I thought. I was like, when you said you had desire and you got the go ahead, and you're like, okay, God, when? And it's like, but you had desire. You didn't have a plan on when you were trying to do this? I guess that was my thought.
Oh, I 100% had a plan. I have a plan in my head of when I have to do this and when I need to do it, and those dates are passing by.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess if I said, hey, Lord, I would desire to do X, Y, Z, and he was like, go ahead. Me saying when would have been like, you already had a plan, and I said, go ahead. I guess that's where my brain went when you were saying. I was like, well,
I didn't think about it. I didn't think about the yes being a total encompassing yes. I thought about the yes as being like, am I good to do this?
Right.
Yes.
So,
when?
Oh.
I mean,
okay.
and now would have been good, or 3 months or 6 months or a year.
I'm curious to wonder, because not to say I have any idea what God is doing with you here. This is now spitballing.
You and me both. We're both in the same boat.
If there was some detriment to doing it now, wouldn't he stay your hand and say, hey, yo, hold off till I say, like he told the disciples, don't leave the city. I need you to be my witnesses in here and here and here and here, but don't leave the city till this thing comes. Right? Like he's given them a marker. Right? Or he says, go and do this. Go do it now. And I'm wondering if there's an adverse impact to his will, or it's not within his will, wouldn't he be a little bit more explicit in? Because I would hate to think, and this is just me just thinking out loud now, I'd hate to think that he has a time in mind and he doesn't tell you and you run down the road with it, unless it's really all about you learning his voice, and maybe that's what it's about. And so I'm just thinking out loud and throwing ideas.
No. I hear you. Me and Jewel were having the conversation. Well, we're constantly having the conversation, but this week reading through Samuel kind of threw a bunch of curveballs. Like it just didn't like this entire week it's been like the importance of like the key in all of these things is was like there was a period was waiting. I kept hearing waiting, right? And how important it is not to move until it's time to move.
Okay.
Right? That's kind of the theme I got throughout the entire week. And I guess in my situation, you know, I think we've had these conversations before. I'm just like, I honestly don't think there's a bad move. Right? But there's a best one, which is the one that God wants me to do, right? And I was like, and I think I've lived my life making decisions that weren't bad. And at that point, that's your reality, right? You never know what you didn't decide. You never experience that reality. And so my thing is like, so in me making my, you know, good, better, best, right? If I'm in me making my good decision or better decision, was there a best decision that God had for me that I just didn't wait on and I just used whatever logic, reasoning, whatever that presented itself and it played out okay or it played out fine, right? No qualms about it, but could there have been a better and best in that? And so like now I'm trying to focus on saying, you know, should I wait for the best? Detriment is contextual. Sorry, I'm not bright. I got to read out loud.
Go ahead, read it. Also, we all could benefit from it. Go ahead.
I was simply saying, because he was saying, is it detrimental? I was like, well, that's contextual, because what God sees as detrimental, what you see as detrimental, two different things. So he can send you down a road, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And he's like, yes, this is exactly what I want. Because his goal at the end of it is different from yours. Your goal for whatever, I don't know the situation, but your goal for whatever the thing is, you have something in mind at the end. He, on the other hand, has something different in mind at the end. You see what I'm saying? So it may seem
I do, but like I'm really trying to be as intentional as I can be as a freaking sinner. I'm trying to be intentional about God's will being done and being fine with whatever it is. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to get to. And I think I've been very clear.
Let's reevaluate these stories then, in that regard. One of the things that was impactful to reading, because I think for today was 1 Samuel 15.
Yeah, today was 15. 14 and 15.
One of the major issues that the stories reveal, particularly chapter 15, is God's will is tied to obedience to whatever he's said.
Facts. Yep.
Right. And where he doesn't say there's no real obedience or disobedience. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of gives dominion in the space where he doesn't define.
Dominion as in rule. I mean, it's as in room.
Yeah, room for you to.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
You know, so it's like God is not micromanaging your diet from the standpoint of chicken or turkey sandwiches. Which one do you want for me to eat today?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you're a big boy, you're smart. There are other guidelines I've given you around that. From within that, you're free to pick whatever you want. And really, all I'm talking now is to principle and things that
I hear you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
See with God. And particularly in these stories, Saul's issue is he didn't follow the instructions that he had.
Correct.
He had instructions and he did something other than that. And one of the things that we see clearly out of the example of Jesus is Jesus was, I'm only doing what you asked me to do. And so the issue with will isn't always even in the issues that the examples that we could see where God speaks in terms of time, right? Waiting.
Mm-hmm.
It's still tied to obedience,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Well, except Abraham. Abraham didn't technically, I guess he did disobey because God said, I would make your wife have a child. And not indirectly, but directly.
Sure.
So I guess, yes, that's still disobedience. That's still.
Well, I don't. Did he say he was going to make Sarah had a child? That was just inferred.
Let's read it. Let's read what the instructions were.
Because
So what the promise was.
I always looked at it as him kind of taking it onto his. I guess it can't be Sarah because this chick is old. So I guess it's got to be Beyonce.
So he says in 15 verse 4 or 15, Genesis 15. Courtney, you could read.
All right, I'm almost there.
Genesis 15 from verse 1.
All right. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you and reward will be great." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Since you have given me no children, Eliezer of Damascus, a servant of my household, will inherit my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir." Then the Lord said to him, "No, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir." Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, "Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have." And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Then the Lord told him, "I am the Lord who brought you out of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession."
You can pause there. What's the message?
You're going to get a son.
It's going to be your son.
Huh?
It's going to be your son, a legitimate
It's
heir.
going to be your son. Well, I guess the message was, I'm going to bless you with all these things. His rationale was like, I can't be blessed with all these things unless I have a kid that will. And God was like, I'm going to bless you with the kid. A son, specifically, yes.
In order to have that son, he had to take
Go ahead. He had to what? He had to what?
I'm going to say he had a bus to have a son, right?
Yes.
And he had a bus on his wife. So he had to occupy.
No.
No. In the context of what was legitimate here.
Yes.
Right? In the context of what was legitimate. The God didn't tell him, go and find a next way to make this happen. He said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen.
I think the assumption should have been that it will be with his wife.
But either way, it's not like the son coming unless he go and.
Yes.
It's in the course of carrying out these actions on a night in.
You said intercourse and carrying. What did you
say? I said in the course.
Oh, in the course. Okay, all right.
It's in the course of carrying out these actions that the son will come. It's not through abstinence.
Okay. I hear you.
So he has to keep on keeping on.
And keep hope alive and do it.
Okay.
It didn't work
I
today,
can-
we go tomorrow. It didn't work tomorrow, we go tomorrow. And we keep doing it until God blesses. At least the way this story is being
I hear
told.
you. I hear you.
It's not,
And
I'm gonna say,
and I think that's one of the battles
inactivity is not going to bear the child.
was that
Inactivity
correct.
won't,
Unless you're Mary.
and in that case, he's gonna come and tell you, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. No, and I think that was one. So, like in this conversation, that was one of the battles I was facing. Is that, I think God blesses us with certain, like we all individually have certain talents and gifts, and that we're specifically blessed with, right? And so I was like, I'm looking at stuff and I'm just like, man, I could do this. I can do this. I could do this. And I could figure this out. And I'm just like, I can't figure it out because I gotta wait. And I was just like, none of this makes any sense to me, because if God's given you particular gifts, or let's call it just insights at that particular time into something, right? That you may naturally have, this, being inquisitive or experience or whatever it is, all that stuff is invaluable, right? In making decisions and whatnot, and God's blessed you with that. But I felt kind of just stuck in the mud until, like, what you guys are saying makes sense. Number one, unless God's been explicit in what he's asked you to do, then he's given room. And
Potentially.
I like what you said. Inactivity in this particular case wasn't going to produce a son.
Let's go to another story. And I noticed this. I think I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I at least noted it. When the children of Israel were given the promised land and promised the promised land, right? He said, I'm gonna drive those people out.
Mm-hmm.
I will go before you and drive them out. The way that is said, it could almost lead to, okay, well, we'll just wait.
Yeah.
But he then said to them, how come you ain't drive the people out of the land yet? They're not going to leave just because you wish it.
But I guess that's the thing. So, and I'm fine with that. So my question now is, how? What do you want us to do? If you're telling me you're going to drive them out,
well, let's go.
I agree. So then what do you want? What do you want me to do in
Let's
order
go.
to help you or to achieve this?
Let's go to it, because I made a note in my Bible app. Hold on. More. You know what's the worst way? You go to an app and then as you open it, they want to ask you to rate it and give feedback. I'm like, I don't really want to do that right now. Right now, you're in my way, right?
Right.
Say that again.
I'm saying, you ever try to use an app and just when you need to use it, they ask you to do a survey, or if you want to,
Yeah.
are you enjoying the app?
Like, not anymore. No, wasn't there? No. All right.
What about, I think, I don't know. This one says it a little differently. Joshua 23, verse 5, right? It says, this land will be yours, for the Lord your God will himself drive out all the people living there now.
Mm-hmm.
You will take possession of their land just as the Lord your God promised you.
Yeah. That's 23:5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the NLT. No, KJV say a little different.
KJV says little the same. I mean, it's essentially the same thing. KJV says, "In the Lord your God, He shall expel them from before you and drive them from out of your sight." So,
Yeah.
I think it was going into Judges.
Okay.
Um, Judges chapter 3.
you said Judges 3.
Mhm.
Sorry, my phone was going dead.
No, it wasn't Judges chapter 3. I think it's I had it.
While we're waiting, Jerry, what are your thoughts, man? I haven't heard from you.
Oh man. Oh man.
Bama, just make a decision.
So it's a couple of things. One of them I have to agree with Lauren. Where, sometimes if not sometimes, most times, if God has a message to get to you, He's gonna find, how do I put it? His style may not necessarily change, but He's gonna find ways to ratchet up the ante to get that message across. It might come more frequently. There's this text that says, "In the mouth of two or three witnesses, let a thing be confirmed." And I've often found if He's given me direction, it might be 2, 3 in the morning. I'm having a quiet devotion, and I almost hear the voice in my head say, "All right, this is what you need to do."
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to find something in scripture to support it. People who I haven't spoken to in years might just randomly reach out and say something that aligns to that in my past. I might be sitting looking at oh crap, what's his name, on Breath of Life, and he's going to preach an entire sermon that aligns exactly to what God is telling me to do. So I've seen that dynamic. Um, my challenge, like yours, sometimes is I like to do, and I get frustrated if I feel like I'm being asked to wait, and I'm not. I don't mind. I don't mind being asked to wait, but it's like I'll wait, but then let me know that I'll be doing these 6 things while waiting. I don't want to just be waiting, and I'm like, because then I start to overthink everything. Am I missing something?
100%. Yes, that's it.
And then, of course, that might crowd out his voice, as has happened sometimes. And he's like, "You were just supposed to be still." So for me, I think maybe last year into this year, okay, I'm a slow learner sometimes, all right? Sumi.
You said
But
what?
last year into this year, because I'm a slow learner, sometimes, it's really been a lesson in learning to be still and trusting in Him for the outcomes of things. So not just trusting in Him to guide me, but trusting in Him to keep guiding me and get me to the outcome that He said He'll get me to. Because what I tend to do is I'll take the guidance and then I'll start running off and doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And He has to constantly like, okay, come back on course. Okay, come back on course. Okay. That being still and waiting, that's tough. That is for me. I'm like, so I'm sitting listening to you and I'm like, sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It is probably one of the hardest things.
So I appreciate Jerry's perspective and I embrace it fully. I want to ask, what do we do with, or how do we counterbalance that to help answer Kendrick's question with this here? Joshua 21. Suppose we go to Joshua 21. Joshua 21, 43 to 45.
So the Lord gave to Israel all the land he had sworn to give their ancestors, and they took possession of it and settled there. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had solemnly promised their ancestors. None of their enemies could stand against them, for the Lord helped them conquer all their enemies. Not a single one of all the good promises the Lord had given to the family of Israel was left unfulfilled. Everything he had spoken came true.
Mm-hmm. One of the interesting phrases there is the Lord gave them all the lands and they took possession of it.
Mm.
To take possession of it, you need to go back now to chapter 17. Or chapter 16 and verse 17.
16.
16 and 17.
Verse 17. 16?
Yeah, 16 and a half seconds.
Oh, so chapter 16 and 17, but hold on.
Okay.
All right, let's go back to 14, because there's a theme that's happening here in all the chapters, but it's as he is telling the story about the different tribes, there's a theme that yeah. Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's go to 14. I'm gonna go Courtney because I would have to give too many instructions to follow along. So we're going from 14 from verse 6.
Okay.
Now the people of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, son of Juniper, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God at Kadesh Barnea, about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought him back a report according to my convictions. My fellow Israelites who went up with me made the heart of the people melt with fear. I, however, followed the Lord God, my God, wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance, and that of your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. Now then, just as the Lord has promised, he has kept me alive for 40 years since the time he said this to Moses while Moses moved about in the wilderness. Here I am today, 85 years old. I'm still as strong today as the day the Lord Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous now to go out to battle as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord has promised me this day. You have heard for yourself that the Anakites were there and their cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said. There are a couple of things here. One, God told him that the land would be his. But he had to wait 85 years for it, or 45 years for it. Right? He didn't just leave there that day and went and take on to it because the circumstance, the timing wasn't right.
Sure.
Right? And he had to wander around in the desert 45 years until they were able to clear the land. And now he's like, okay, now it's time for my land. He was able to tell the time because of the circumstance. So that's thing number one. But when it was time, it wasn't just given to him. He had to go and take it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that equips you, but there's some principles that are loaded in there. One, the circumstance can dictate the time.
Sure.
Two, timing is also tied up in relationships with other people because God is moving things for other people. Part of the reason Caleb had to wait was these people had to die. God told them everybody waiting on these people to die. right? And so there may not have been a clear word to Caleb about when, but he was able to sense the when due to the circumstance, because God never came back and answered him when.
He never answered him when, but the when kind of played out.
And he became aware of it in the moment. He's like, okay, now.
But 40 years went by.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it's almost it's the equivalent of like David, right? You're anointed in 1980. You're not going to be king till, you're not king till 2020. And it wasn't that long, but still, but it's a long time.
No,
and you had to wait, and you had to wait for Saul to die.
Correct. But when the time was right, he knew, without word from the Lord. There was a, in both example of Caleb and Joshua, there was an evidence in the dynamic of the circumstance. And to your initial question, Caleb just kind of carried on life as normal, because first of all, they weren't in the promised land. They were still on their way there. So I couldn't take the land. I couldn't leave the camp now and go and take the land, because we're doing this as a group.
Mm-hmm.
In that dynamic, you know that it's not now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were on a movement to the promised land. And I'm saying this to say, in the instance, because I'm not saying this is your case, but in the instance where the situation is determining the when, there's some evidences that it's not now. So God doesn't have to say, per se. And similar thing with David. He couldn't be king as long as Saul is alive.
So this is my frustration with God on this, right? When I don't have a clear answer, I start reading tea leaves, man. Like I'm picking out things. Like, oh, that must be this. Oh, that must be this. Oh, that must mean this. Right?
Mm.
And I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to be doing either.
It's a good point. So let's move on to chapter 17.
What was
18, chapter 18, 1.
What was the question?
Hold on, let me get the question there.
Oh, okay.
Is doing something good for others God's will or ours? I would say it depends.
Yeah.
Depends. For example, the first time Saul disobeyed, he was trying to save the morale of the people. The people were starting to get antsy, and he was doing it for them. When Aaron built the calf, he was doing something for the people. So it depends. It depends on your motivation.
Well, not just your motivation, but even God's will in the moment, right? That's like, I think of all these people on what is that series? Intervention. Where people might legitimately need food, and you might give them money for food, but then, God knows they're gonna take it and go light up that crack pipe, right? So he might be like, yeah.
I would to sign on to that.
Facts.
Matthew 7, I think it's 21 says, "But Lord, didn't we do X number and Y things in your name?" That was good things for people, but that was not God's will for them in that moment. That's not what He was looking for. So yeah. Joshua 18. Courtney, you can read from here. 18:1.
Right. Now that now that the land was under Israelite control, the entire community of Israel gathered at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle. But there remained 7 tribes who had not yet been allotted their grants of land. Then Joshua asked them, "How long are you going to wait before taking possession of the remaining land the Lord, the God of your ancestors, has given to you? Select 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them out to explore the land and map it out. They will then return to me with a written report of their proposed divisions of their new homeland. Let them divide the land into 7 sections, excluding Judah's territory in the south and Joseph's territory in the north. And when you record the 7 divisions of the land and bring them to me, I will cast sacred lots in the presence of the Lord our God to assign land to each tribe."
Pause there. One of the reason I'm bringing this up is one of the things that I had to wrestle with in some of the conversation that you were talking about, Kenrick, is sometimes there's a unwritten expectation that God's provision for me is a thing that's handed to me, and it's oftentimes His provision for me requires that I get up and take this action, right? And His promise to do this thing is a promise to aid me in that effort, but it's Him doing it. And so I'm adding these things about God to the picture, right? I'm not saying that God is telling you this. I'm saying this is a truism about God.
Yeah.
To consider as you are. And I say that because He's, according to what you said, He's made this clear thing of the land is yours. Like I remember when they were coming out of Egypt, He was like, "Why are you standing still? Keep moving forward." The Egyptians are coming. Why are you standing still? Tell the Israelites to move forward. Why are you coming and crying to me? Just keep pressing on.
Just keep walking.
I already told you where we going, why we going there. Just continue in that
until I tell you otherwise.
Yeah, like and that's the thing that I've also seen about God, right? And you may be having this wrestle with Him because He wants you to wait, and that may be very true. But it's also true of Him that He's intentional and specific about the things He wants to be intentional and specific about, and then mum on a whole lot of other things.
Correct. Yeah. It's something that I've never experienced, and there are times I feel paralyzed. Like I can't move. I can't make a decision. I can't. Yeah. And no matter how hard I try to, I plead and beg, like, just let me know. Silence.
The part where I guess I may have missed it in the beginning. So this is something you requested.
Yeah.
You're waiting to answer, not God coming to you out of nowhere saying, "Henry,
Yeah.
I need
No. This was not. Right. This was not. This was like, yeah, I think I want this.
Okay. And so most of the examples we've read are God coming to people, telling them He wants them to do something, right?
Correct.
So then I can't make a connection with any of those. Like, I mean, I get about His character.
Yeah.
But I feel like it doesn't matter what I feel. But my understanding of how God moves so far at this stage of my life is God, He tailor-made our experiences based on our personality and where you are in your life. So you may be the same person, but the person you were today is not the same person you were going to be a month from now, next week, in the past. So the way he talked to you back then is not how he talks to you now, and the way he talks to you down the road is not how he talks to you right now. So
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
So
So
if go ahead.
no, I'll let you finish because I was gonna ask something based upon something
No,
you
go
said
ahead.
already.
Add it, because like you might forget.
Yeah, I will forget. I'm a guy. So you mentioned that I guess what I'm saying, there were no stories that kind of lined up, right? So if we go to Saul, so Saul had there was something in Saul that wanted to go after the Philistines, right? There was some I can't remember, and I think we read it. Trying to figure out what chapter it's in now. But it was like it was almost something that it was like I don't know. I wouldn't say a call. It was something that, but it seemed like something that he wanted to do. That was part of his legacy. Yes, no.
Something like that.
And so I'm saying that to to Lorraine's point. So him going after them, and then him asking, if it should happen, right? And we heard a lot of, we've kind of seen this over the past especially in Judges, right? And I think one of the phrases as Judges comes, at the end of each chapter or several chapters or a few chapters, whatever it is, was like they made what do they say? They made decisions that were best to them,
like in
or
their
something
own
like that,
eyes, right?
because was that
It was like what they thought was best, like what they
what
saw best, or what was best
correct
in their own,
in their own eyes,
right.
correct, right? And so you're coming out of that, coming into this, and you're realizing that there was something about Saul that I think he did want to do this, certain things. He did want to know how God, initially how God wanted him to do it, right? So there were some things that weren't necessarily God saying do this and I'm waiting on it. There were some things that Saul had that was like, yeah, I want to go out and fight this battle. Will we win?
Man, I'd add a wrinkle to this conversation, and from Judges also, chapter 2. Talk, we talking about right after Joshua passed, and the people were starting to kind of go wayward. But this is our verse starting at chapter 2, verse 20. It says, so the Lord burned with anger against Israel. He said, because these people have violated my covenant, which I made with their ancestors, and have ignored my commands, I will no longer drive out the nations that Joshua left unconquered when he died. I did this to test Israel, to see whether or not they would follow the ways of the Lord as their ancestors did. That is why the Lord left the nations in place. He did not quickly drive them out or allow Joshua to conquer them all. So even though it seems like Joshua did what he did, there was a point of Jesus, like God didn't give them everything even after that. To a point, it was still a point where he was testing the nation to see if they were going to be obedient.
Yes, 100% agree. There's a caveat here that didn't happen until they didn't. If they had done it when they had their chance, when they was being faithful,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have made this decision.
Okay.
This decision was contingent on the fact that one, they weren't faithful in doing it. They started to marry, they started to whatever, and he's like, all right, bet. Or they didn't want to do what I asked you to do. I'm gonna do this, and it'll be to your benefit, but I'm gonna still make this adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah. But they still had the clear instructions to go and claim the land. It was theirs.
Okay. I think just that last one was the verse, that 23. That's where I was just kind of like, huh? So he didn't give all of those nations. He didn't even allow Joshua to conquer them all for a reason. It seemed like.
Yeah, it starts in 10. The whole generation didn't know what the Lord wanted, and they forsook the Lord. It says. So a lot of these things are consequences of that action.
Okay.
And not just God pivoting, arbitrarily.
I got you.
So pivoting response. But yeah, Kevin,
I didn't mean to keep everybody on this all night. It was just something that
That's so
I'm wrestling with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not the only one. So I was wrestling along with you. I have the same kind of challenges, and I was just kind of sharing some of the things that I think about when I'm doing the wrestle.
No, it was good luck. No, there was some things that you guys said, things that I will definitely be processing and praying about.
There's also the story that we were just looking at there with Saul and the Philistines. You also have the example of Jonathan, who's like, I'd like to do this, and if this happens, I'm gonna take that as a sign that you want
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna take it as a sign that you want me to go.
Man, I've been throwing salt up in the air if it blows to the left. Like I've been doing like I was looking for a carcass with some honey. I was trying to find everything. I couldn't. Because you hear you hear all the stuff, right? You hear the story about the dude that was on the roof, saying that he was waiting on praying for somebody to come save him or God to save him, and all these boats passing by. You heard, if you're waiting on a bus, you run after the bus if you're gonna miss it, and if you catch it, it's your bus, and if it's not the one for you. Like, you hear all this stuff, right? I'm just like,
yeah,
like what is and all of that's goes to action. All that goes to inactivity. I think the word you used, Jared, all of it points to all of that. But at the end of the day, like I'm the type of dude, like, God wants you sitting on that house. He wants you sitting on the house.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though.
Whether you want to be saved or not, he might just want you sitting on that house for a few days because that's where he needs you to be.
Agreed. One of the things that we kind of see, though, Kenrick, and I guess this is more for me than for you, is that when it comes to God's will, he can be very explicit.
He can.
So what does it mean when he's not?
I don't know.
I think that's a question we probably need to wrestle with. What if he chooses to be explicit, and I'm asking it in the context of because what I'm hearing from you is you are in a pursuit of faithfulness to him.
Yes.
Right.
Whatever that looks like.
Whatever that looks like, you want to be faithful to what he wants. You want to want what he wants. You want to be clear on what he wants, and follow that. What we see here, cover to cover, is there are things that he wants that he is explicit about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a struggle just to do that when we know what he wants.
100%.
If you don't have that clarity, are you going against his will?
So, and that's the thing. I think that's one of the things I was saying earlier. So I will say this about me. Like, it's a lot of foolishness in my life. Right? but if God tells me to do something, like that's it. I don't need anything else.
That's interesting that you
And
say
I'll be
that.
damned if
So
I
if you
do
have that kind
anything
of
but that.
relationship with him and he understands that about you, why you think understanding your relationship with him, what would be the objective of not telling
the
you?
good, better, best. My thing is the good, better, best.
No. Sorry. What do you understand my question to be?
What I understand your question to be is if God has been this explicit with you all these other times,
No.
and the expectation that like he knows you'll be obedient to what he wants you to do,
Right.
then why? Like, then what's the question? No.
Why would he give
Why?
What would be the objective of a gray area for you? Particularly if your posture.
I should have shut up. I didn't hear that. This is what Jewel talks to me about.
No worries. That's why I asked the question when you hear me say, because I wasn't sure if you could. And if you heard the question and I was still the answer, that's cool too. I just want to make sure you knew what my question was. Like,
what's the objective of a gray area?
Yeah, what's the objective of leaving an unanswered question for you? And maybe you seek that out. What do you need from me that you would?
I think
I'm gonna do
only
what you say. Why wouldn't you give me clarity here?
The only thing I would say is that knowing who I am, and because I'm a doer and I'll just do, is if there's no clarity and there's a gray area, no, he'll just tell me to wait.
And what you'll do? You'll wait.
I will wait.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just, go ahead.
Sinners have it so much easier.
I was just gonna leverage
people
Lauren's
that just
statement.
don't want to obey God. They just have so much easier. I want to obey. This is stress. I would rather. I mean, maybe just take the L.
No.
Lauren makes a very good point. The experience that I have had as well is that it deals with us as individuals. He has expectations for us as a community, but he deals with us as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding who we are and helping us to understand him. And part of his objective is for us to learn to grow him. Like in that exchange, his approach to Samuel, and so that's the story we started with, was so Samuel could learn his voice.
Mm-hmm.
So that when he spoke, he would be clear and sure
that was him
to follow.
Yep. Which he did.
Your relationship with him is such that you recognize his voice, and you've demonstrated a propensity towards faithfulness.
In certain situations, yeah.
A propensity. That's why I use the word propensity.
Yeah. There are others where it's just, oh my gosh, no.
And I thought about even like Moses. Like when God first spoke to Moses, he didn't just talk to him. He's like, I got to make him curious first. Let me make a burning bush over here so he'll come closer to where I'm at. Then later on down the line, he's just talking to him. Then he actually gets to go closer. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. No, good point. Good point.
And then too, like, as far as like he's saying, he told you to, once again, I can't. Don't take me as guidance.
I'm recording this whole thing. I'm taking all this thing back to God. But like,
but like as a, I also like to look at God as like a parent-child relationship. Like if I ask God, if my child asks me, can I go outside? And I say yes. If she stood there looking at me, saying when, I'd be like,
you idiot! I told you.
And Lauren, to your point, if you had an issue with timing, you would have communicated it in that moment.
Not now. Maybe
you gotta wait until blah blah blah, or you gotta
Well, you may not even given all the detail. Not
Right.
right now.
Right.
No,
Right.
I hear you. Makes sense.
Or what would you
I
do to
think-
Kenrick? Let me ask you this: what would you do
I
to
think
your
a lot.
child who was waiting for an answer to a question that you think you already gave them?
So this is my problem. So me and Jewel have this conversation, and she was like, "If anybody came to you and asked you this stuff, like, what would you tell them?" And I was like, "Nothing that I'm doing." I would tell them everything that you're saying right now. Like, I would be a proponent of that. I was like, nothing that I'm doing right now would I would never advise anybody to do this. So yeah, I would if somebody was like, dude, like, what are you waiting on? Like, what else you need?
I've heard that before.
You're you're gonna you're gonna know. But I'm stupid, right? I'm stupid because it's the same thing. Like I said earlier, like the same stuff I tell my kids. Like, why are you stressing about this? Like, God made them. Like,
Well,
go to God and figure it out. And he had to remind me of like, Bama, go, like, out. Let me figure this out for you. I got it. I'm stupid.
You're looking for wisdom and guidance. Just keep asking, and he's not gonna make you feel stupid about it. Like, if you're still unsure as to what he's telling you, I don't know. I just can't see if he really sees. Okay, he's really not getting it. Like, he's really not. I need to tell him again. Go.
My mother used to say, "Figure it out," and she wouldn't help me at all.
But that,
I'm not saying God is like my mother. I'm just saying that there's a world where that's beneficial to the child.
I guess my thing is that I'm trying to get away from. I'm trying to get from good, better, best. I want to be best. Like, I want to do exactly what he wants me to do. Right. And not try out the 2 or 3 different tributaries, that will still maybe take me to where I am. But I want to know where he wants me to go, what he wants me to do, how he wants me, that's what I want.
I wouldn't be stuck on the good, better, best, though. I mean, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But there's beauty to the process. So even if you're going after a good, like,
yeah,
once again,
good ain't best, man.
I mean, I get it. Trust me. But at the end of the day, your goal right now is best. And he's like, yeah, but you wanted this. Like, let's go this route. It may be a longer route, but it will work what I needed to work out. Go.
But my thing is this: if he wants me on that route, then that's best.
Right, but
fine.
He didn't tell you explicitly. You asked, and he said, "Go."
Sure, I got you.
So if he actually told you, then I would assume that's the best because it's coming. It begins with him telling you to do something. But if you're asking something, it could be anywhere between good, better, best. Like, it could, but that doesn't matter.
Goodest.
It could be that best is the posture that you currently have, and any route you choose in that posture is best. But we determine best by the path itself, and he's determined best by the posture on the path. Yeah, because I've seen that also to be his priority. He cares more about our faithfulness, our posture of faithfulness to him, than the actual details of which way and the journey and the growth that happens. It's like it really don't matter. Just put on a pair of shoes and come on, let's go outside. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna play football or basketball? It don't matter. You just need a pair of shoes. Just put something on your feet. Let's go.
Interesting.
Potentially, and all of this is potential, right? It's just things to consider.
No, like, so I was praying this morning, and I was studying and praying this morning, and it was like today was like going to be like the epiphany, like it was gonna be the day where things happened. This is the only thing that's happened. But
Dang.
Sorry for not hitting the mark.
no, and I had but all the people that I was praying about helping me start this, like everybody that I thought that was going to be the impetus of something happening, I talked to all of them today. Like randomly, not even like expecting it. And nothing happened. And then I'm having this conversation with you guys. And maybe this is the beginning of something happening.
He's one of those guys who's jumping if he needs
Hate
to
life.
and course correct.
Anyway, that's enough about my foolishness.
It's not foolishness, man.
No, it's not. Because you're not the only one struggling with that. So that's why
You know what text literally popped into my head? There's no temptation that has come unto you, but such as is common to man. So whatever you're facing, chances are it's common with us and with others. That statement you just made, Jared, is helpful. I know it can be helpful. I just have to figure out how helpful. Where you said it's that sometimes he's more interested in the posture of faithfulness than some of the details.
yeah.
And it's like, go on, your shoes, come outside. And you know, I might be here like, yeah, well, you know, temperature outside, and I don't know if these are the right shoes. And he's like, yeah, then.
I know where we're going, what we're doing, and that Joseph thing. I mean, we talked about it. It was pivotal for me. You know, the Lord was with him. I'm sure Joseph thought there was a better way for him. It was a much better way for him to.
Joseph thought I could think of a million better ways.
Why was this the
spending
best
time
way?
in Sing Sing?
Or the whole jail thing, falsely accused. What is
Yeah, like
Come
I
on,
can think
man.
of just like you read all these stories about these dudes that they're in jail for 40 years and they're exonerated. I was like, y'all could have figured this stuff out.
Yep.
Like Joseph
Something was
had
fishing
to go
40 years
through
ago,
what he went
39 years ago, 38 years ago.
Did he have to, Cliff? Did he have to?
Yeah. I say he had to.
No.
I'm not sure he had to.
The reason why
I'm not sure he had to, but go ahead. I'm listening.
No, the reason why I say he had to, I think, and this is just me, I believe that there were certain characteristics that he had to unlearn, certain beliefs that he had to let go in order to see God's plan for him. And it took a series of events in order for him to learn to truly trust God when he couldn't trace him. I believe that even though he was living in the camp of family that was supposedly was all into God, there was a whole bunch of other stuff going on that was not leading him in the right direction. You know what I mean? So I just think that the stuff that he had to go through, he needed to in order to point him in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know what my issue is. My issue is that I only trust God when I need to trust God.
Ooh, that's deep, man.
Everything else I can do. I can figure out everything.
Wait. Say that again. I want to make sure I got that right.
I said I only trust God when I need to trust God. Everything else I can like in my story I told you about the dude I was dealing with. Like it came to the point where I couldn't do it. There was nothing else I could do, and I was making a mess of it. Right? and God had to be like, yo, stop. Right?
There he is. You were making a mess. He said, stop.
I stopped, and he was like, you know, and he like reminded me of everything I tell my girls.
Now,
And so I then,
answer this question.
yeah.
Do you come to the realization about yourself if you don't make this mess? And if you had asked
No, I don't.
And if you had asked God from before, how should I handle this situation? And he tells you, stop. Do you come to that realization about yourself?
I don't, but I think that's the thing. I never ask God. Very rarely do I ask God before I do get into my mess.
Right. And I would say God understands that about you, and sometimes he leverages that because he in this situation he did show up and say, stop. But after you came to the realization of self.
Yes.
And so now you're in the gray area where you need to be.
Well, but in that situation, I was very explicit. It was like, you're no longer doing this. You can't do this. I'm the only one who can do this because I'm the only one who knows everything about this person. So now let me deal with this. And at that point, I let it go. Like when I say let it go, I let it go. I didn't even think about it. And then I happened to be over there doing something else, and this dude came and was like, "Hey, I have something for you."
And you were content to do what?
Leave it alone.
To wait.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you.
You were content to wait, and you waited, and you didn't move until God said it was time. And how do you know it was time? Like Caleb,
the dude showed up.
The dude showed up, and it was like, "Oh, now it's time."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely rational. Completely rational.
Hindsight is always rational, right?
Oh my gosh. I was like, he came up with the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Okay. You guys have been that boat as I'm sitting on the roof. Thank you.
Transformative for me.
I got five boats that passing me by. Was that
God cares less about the outcomes and the circumstances as he does about what it does for us in the process.
Facts. I do 100% agree with that. Yes.
Thanks for my takeaway, Jared. Thanks for my takeaway.
So let me throw a wrinkle in here on the basis of I really want to save this conversation for when Sharika comes because she has a very interesting perspective on it. So I had a question about death and motivation and the inevitability of death. And it came up in conversation with her today as she had, is experiencing this loss with her grandfather and whatnot. I was going to throw that wrinkle in here to you, Kenrick. How much does the inevitability of death affect your timing and your whole weight thing? Given that tomorrow is not promised, do you really wait?
So I think that 100% plays into any and everything I do. Right? I will my theme in life, like it was always like especially over the past probably 15, 20 years, like I was just like I'm not gonna have regrets. Like I'll never live with regrets. Like I'll get to be 80, 85 and be like, we shouldn't have done that. Like, and there'll be a lot of those, right? But at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not going to live with regrets. Tomorrow's not promised. You only get one life. Like that's, and so I was like, we're going to, we, as a family, we make decisions based upon that. Right. And it's like, you know, I tell Jewel all the time, like, this, like, it could really go sideways. Like, things could really end up really bad. Right? And I'm just like, if it does, we'll figure it out. So yeah, I think, especially you've been through this with your mom, but as I look at my parents and they're getting older, I think it becomes, increasingly obvious that, there's a shelf life. Like it's, and then depending on, especially at our age, you wake up and, you can see a Facebook notice or Instagram post or whatever, and like a friend, colleague, somebody passed away all of a sudden. Like it really becomes, dude, really, Jewel? Here you go. Like,
Hi. Whatever. I'm
Welcome,
over here
welcome.
slaving away, making him bits and pieces of Cinco de Mayo. Yes. Hi.
Hey,
Oh, you're still alive. Okay. Bye.
oh my gosh.
I'll see y'all in about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have. That right there is that's life. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm curious as like, what do y'all? Yes, that plays it. So, yes, death, and mortality plays into a lot of my decisions.
Wow. Oh snap! What did I do? All right. Yeah. Sorry.
What was that? You didn't want to mirror a website you have up? Like, what was the?
No. I ended up hitting full screen, and I wasn't sure if I changed the view for everybody else out there.
Oh, okay.
oh no, what did I do?
All right. I know it's 10 to 10. Anybody had any other observations? Any things that stood out to them before we go into our takeaways? All right, let's do that. I know Jerry said that he thank you for my takeaway, but I'm gonna ask you to restate it just to concretize it. How about that? Yeah.
Yeah, God is more concerned with the changes that happen internally, and us leaning into our relationship with Him than He is about the outcomes and the details sometimes. And I know I usually get it flipped. I'm more concerned with the outcome, and does it have to be this way? Can I learn this another way?
Jerry, a phrase that comes to mind for me is sometimes the outcomes are the means to the end. So I'm gonna bless you with all this finance because it'll help you to trust me, or I'm gonna give you this debilitating disease because it'll help you to trust me, or I'm gonna not answer your question and go ghost on you because it'll help you to trust me.
Yeah, all of that.
But what I really want is for us to grow a relationship and for you to trust me, ultimately. And I understand you and what catches your attention, so I orchestrate things around who you are to facilitate that. Yeah. Comes a means to an end. Courtney, take away.
What's up? Oh man, I guess last we really just talked about Joseph and as an example of everything, and two things came to mind with just the story of Joseph. For me personally, as I've been through my own waiting, one, I always like to think of the verses in Matthew where we speak about being a servant, and how those that would be the ones that will be first will be those that serve. So I think there was a lesson in that for Joseph. And then secondly, I just think about just the timing, you know, when he was sold, how many years he was in service, like probably like 11, 12 years. And I don't know. I just think that maybe even our society think that because, you know, advancement, maybe, you know, we're looking to God for that advancement. We think that's supposed to come quickly. And I just think that with God, you can see that there are a lot of things that, you know, take some time to develop, you know, and you think about a child, baby developing takes a little bit longer than other animals. And then even to think about something as small as an acorn, how long does that take to become an oak tree? You know, so it's just all these things just talk to me about just patience for myself, for real. So you know, the topic is very relevant. I mean, I still got things I'm waiting for answers for, but you know, definitely in time, God has and will, you know, do what's best for us.
Well, how about you, Cliff?
I've been trying to figure out how to formulate mine into a couple of words or so. I think what my takeaway is that free will is genuine, it's deep, and it's complex. And I think outside the community of heaven, we struggle with understanding. If I said that correctly, I hope I didn't confuse anybody.
It's just way too deep for me.
Yeah, now you have to unpack it.
Yeah. So now,
it
I'm
didn't make
going,
sense,
but as I'm unpacking it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Free will, man, it's the ability to have free will it's a deep, complex, and genuine thing. But outside of the community of heaven, which we are not familiar with, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. I receive it.
No, it makes sense.
Yep. Lauren?
I have a lot of thoughts floating around in my head. So, so it made me think about one of my not favorite pastors that I like to listen to because he teaches, right? For me, and one of the things he says, the thing he always says is when God is doing something, he's doing something. And when he's doing nothing, he's still doing something. Mm-hmm. Even in the process of not knowing, he is still moving and doing and working silently. So it's not like he left you in limbo and left you in the gray area and is like, you're free. He's actually watching you, seeing how you're reacting to it, watching how you're responding to it. So it's never just static and just like, let's just see what happens. Like he's actually moving and working. And as he sees you move, he moves. And he's like, okay, just maybe like I need to. Right. Yes, just like that. And then for me, like kind of like Kendrick's saying, like when he was saying how he learned that he seeks God more when it's not within his means to do the thing, right? And whatever means that is, time, money, whatever. I noticed that about me as well. Like I will more, my urgency, let's clarify, that my urgency for seeking him is stronger when it is not within any power in me to do it. But when I have any kind of anything, like if it's another person, the mental capacity, the whatever the thing is, when I feel like I have something, I may ask him, but it's not with the same like fervor as when I don't got it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I've for like the past 4 years I've been thinking legacy a lot, but not in the financial passing down to my child kind of thing. More like a representative kind of thing. Like, so we're here representing him, and how am I doing it within the process of waiting, within the process of figuring out what to do. Because like we were talking to Kendrick about, if it made me think of it, that's why I said there's so many thoughts floating around. There's a verse that talks about like if it's a sin for you, like if God told you blah 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 and you go against it, it's a sin for you, even though the next man can do it, and you just fine because God didn't tell him that. So for me and Kendrick and any of us, if God gave you a clear no and you're moving in that direction, you're no longer representing what he wants you to represent because you're no longer on the path that he was trying to put you on.
Yeah.
Those are just the floating thoughts. They're connected, but they're more like this.
I got you. Thank you, Lorraine. How about you, Karen? What are you going home with?
You mean the 40,000 nuggets that you guys have?
Yeah. Which one of those you're going home with? Which one you putting in your bag?
So I think one thing to kind of sum up what was said maybe simply is that God is very intentional with each of us. And he's intentional, we're all unique. We're all special. We all, he knows exactly who we are and what we need, how to communicate with us. And so I think that speaks to intentionality. Jared, what you said about inactivity, essentially inactivity doesn't necessarily provide results or yield results all the time. Doesn't mean it can't when you're dealing with God, because 0 + 0 could equal 12. But in the examples that were used, inactivity did not yield those results. Inactivity by the person, the group of people. So those are probably the two things that kind of, holistically, that kind of stuck out. There are a lot of nuggets, and even what Lorraine just said is kind of swirling in my head as well. So those are two quick ones.
Mine is the advice that I got. This conversation reaffirmed the advice that I got from the perspective that my therapist offered to me. Because I was experiencing, I wouldn't say a paralysis, but I was wrestling with those same questions, and I felt like this perspective liberated me. When I do reflection on what my experience has been, at least I know now is not that. And sometimes the path to knowing what His will is often one of exploration, and it's not always one of clear direction. And when it is, he makes that direction clear. But otherwise, it's a path of exploration, because there's a learning of myself that happens in the process that doesn't happen if I don't go through the process. And in my learning of self, I am a better position to trust Him, to trust Him. And so I'm no longer afraid of not so best approach. Because here's what, I would always probably have that lingering question of maybe pastoring is the how. But that question has been fully answered. It is not. It's not the how.
For anyone?
For me. We're talking about me
for
right
you.
now.
Okay,
For me.
okay, I was just
It's
making sure.
not the how. And
Yeah.
so we can take that off the board.
Mm-hmm.
But those 2 years, 3 years, I
Were
learned
necessary.
I could not have come to that conclusion. Now, I could have said, God, just show me the way. I will go that route, and I won't need to learn that. But he wanted me to know me better, so I could know him better. So that's just testimony about my takeaway.
Cool.
Testimony to my takeaway, not anything for you.
Love it.
It's all for me. This is a selfish water for the thirsty.
Yeah, if it fall in your garden, wet it, but I'm not throwing it in your garden. All right, I didn't see anything come through in the chat, so we'll just kind of close out.
Oh, just seeing some of the comments. I didn't see. I saw Arlene.
Yeah.
Gail. Napper.
I did not see Gail's comment. Sorry, I missed that. I thought I saw the G and the YouTube and thought it was Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. 100%. All right, if it's okay, I'll pray tonight, and then we'll do our goodbyes. Father in heaven, we thank you for your word, your spirit, and your intentionality around each of us. We thank you that you are an individual God and the God of everybody at the same time, and you're working for us to collectively understand you, but individually have relationship with you. And we thank you for the ways that you go about doing that. We thank you that your ways are not like ours, and that you are helping to bring us up to that. And we ask that you continue to make yourself clear to us so that we can understand you better. We ask that you continue to refine and purify and be the God of process that you are. Help us to embrace it. Help us to appreciate it. Help us to value it as much as you do. Help us to value as well the posture of trusting you fully, and yet not my will, but thy will be done. So that whenever we have clear instructions from you, whatever they are, we are faithful to them and don't turn to the left or to the right, and hold fast. And be with everyone who's on this call tonight, the participants and those who are listening and those who provided in the chat. Continue to bless them, continue to provide for them, continue to comfort those who need comfort and heal those who need healing. And when we return again, may we have testimonies of not just your grace, but how you've revealed yourself and we've grown in you as our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Are we here every first and third Friday? It's first Friday in May, and it's the 5th. Add 7 days to that. That's 7 and 5 is 12. So yeah, that's 19. The 19th, we'll be here again. We follow the Bible reading plan. Everybody is on here, I think, knows that. But if you don't, we follow a Bible reading plan that you can download from the app or get a hard copy by emailing us at info@waterforthethirsty.com. Our conversations are not just random, but they are coming from here, and they're coming based on our experiences as this kind of informs us. So if you read along with us, you can follow along with the conversations a little bit better. I think you can, but I think this is a little better if you're following along with the reading, so you kind of know where we are. Yeah. Did I miss anything? No.
No.
All right.
Where you can get the Bible reading.
The App Store or the internet, the website, waterforthethirsty.com.
This Bible said the internet.
The internet, the website. The website. I'm losing all my words. In the
on the
website.
on the interweb.
In the interwebs. waterforthethirsty.com. If you don't have a copy, and share it with somebody else. Invite someone to read with you. And it takes us through the Bible in a year, and this is our ninth time through. Yeah, we're going for 10. All right. So I guess until the next time, drink up, drink deeply, and see you on the 21st, the 19th. See you on the 19th.
The 19th.